Kindness and weakness are often confused in today's world. We've been conditioned to believe that to be kind is to be submissive, to let others walk all over you, to always give in, and to stay silent when it might cost us something. But this confusion leads to a misunderstanding of what true kindness really is. The truth is, kindness is not synonymous with weakness. In fact, it takes great strength to be kind when the world pressures us to be indifferent or harsh. At its core, kindness is a choice to respond to others with patience, compassion, and understanding, even when it isn't easy. But being kind doesn't mean you're a doormat. It doesn't mean you let people take advantage of you or that you avoid confrontation at all costs. True kindness recognizes boundaries and respects oneself just as much as others. The misconception that kindness equals weakness often arises from a fear of conflict or a desire to please everyone. But pleasing everyone isn't kindness, it's insecurity. When we think kindness means never upsetting anyone or always going along with what others want, we lose sight of the fact that sometimes the kindest thing we can do is be firm, to say no, or to challenge someone when they need it most. Being kind when it feels inconvenient or uncomfortable is what takes true strength. It takes strength to be kind when the person you're dealing with has wronged you, or when you're exhausted and just want to shut down. It takes strength to show kindness to someone who isn't showing it to you. That's not weakness. It's also important to note that true kindness is rooted in authenticity. When we try to be kind out of obligation or to gain approval, we're not being genuine. And that kind of kindness is hollow. Kindness, when it's a genuine expression of who you are, reflects strength of character. It's the ability to treat others with respect and empathy, regardless of how they treat you. This strength doesn't come from being passive. It comes from knowing your worth and choosing to give love and grace even when it isn't returned. We see examples of this strength all around us. People who are kind yet firm, compassionate yet unwavering in their principles. Think about the moments when someone confronts you about something difficult, but they do so with gentleness and respect. They don't bend to your every whim, but they still show you kindness, and they do so in a way that doesn't compromise their own sense of self. This is strength in action. But when we equate kindness with weakness, we fall into the trap of believing that we must always give, always forgive, and always let people walk all over us to be good people. This distorted view can leave us drained, resentful, and ultimately ineffective in our efforts to truly help others. If kindness means self-sacrifice to the point of destruction, then it's no longer kind, it's unhealthy. Moreover, kindness isn't just about what we give to others, it's also about how we care for ourselves. When we ignore our own needs in the name of kindness, we're not acting out of strength. We're acting out of fear, fear of rejection, fear of not being liked, or fear of confrontation. The most compassionate thing we can do for others is to take care of ourselves, to recognize when we're being depleted and need to step back. This doesn't make us weak, it makes us wise. In relationships, business, and even in personal growth, understanding the difference between kindness and weakness is essential. Kindness may require hard decisions, difficult conversations, and tough love. But at the end of the day, kindness is the opposite of weakness. It's strength, discernment, and the courage to do what is right even when it's uncomfortable. Boundaries are one of the most powerful tools we have in shaping our lives, yet many people struggle with understanding or implementing them. Boundaries are often viewed negatively, as if they create separation or division between people. However, in reality, boundaries are the foundation of healthy relationships, self-respect, and personal growth. Without boundaries, we risk becoming overwhelmed, burned out, and resentful because we allow others to encroach on our time, energy, and emotional space. A boundary is essentially a line that defines where one person ends and another begins. It's a mental, emotional, or physical space that keeps us from being overrun or manipulated by the expectations, demands, or behaviors of others. Just like a fence around a property, boundaries protect our inner world, ensuring we can maintain our sense of self, peace, and well-being. In personal relationships, boundaries are crucial. They allow us to show love and respect for others without losing ourselves in the process. When we lack boundaries, we often overextend ourselves, saying yes to requests we don't really want to fulfill or tolerating behaviors that are disrespectful or harmful. By setting clear boundaries, we protect our own needs and prevent others from taking advantage of our kindness. Healthy boundaries allow us to give love, time, and energy to others in a way that is sustainable and mutually respectful without depleting ourselves. For example, in a friendship or romantic relationship, it's important to communicate what you need and what you won't tolerate. If someone's behavior is consistently disrespectful, a boundary can be a way to assert that this behavior is unacceptable. It's not about shutting the other person out, but rather about defining what is and isn't okay within that relationship. A boundary might look like saying, I can't continue this conversation if you're yelling, or I need space to think before we discuss this issue. These boundaries are not walls, they are protective measures that ensure you don't lose yourself in the relationship. Boundaries aren't just about saying no to others, they're also about saying yes to yourself. Too often, people set aside their own needs, desires, or time to please others. This leads to burnout, resentment, and even anxiety. When you don't set boundaries, you're sending the message that your needs don't matter as much as someone else's. By setting boundaries, you acknowledge that your feelings, your time, and your energy are valuable and deserve to be protected. Setting boundaries also requires a level of self-awareness. You need to know what your limits are, what you're willing to tolerate, and where you need space. This requires tuning into your own emotions, recognizing when you're feeling drained, overwhelmed, or violated, and having the courage to take action. The challenge often lies in the fear of disappointing others, or the fear of being perceived as selfish. However, a lack of boundaries is far more harmful in the long run than the temporary discomfort of saying no or setting limits. Boundaries are also necessary in professional settings. In today's fast-paced, always connected world, it's easy to lose sight of personal boundaries at work. Many people feel compelled to be constantly available, to work late hours, or to say yes to every project or task that comes their way. But this kind of overcommitment leads to stress, burnout, and reduced productivity. Setting boundaries in the workplace, such as limiting how many hours you work per day, taking breaks, or clearly communicating your availability, allows you to maintain a healthy work-life balance. It also shows others that you value your time and energy, which in turn earns you respect. The power of boundaries extends beyond individual relationships and work situations. They are also an essential tool for personal growth. When you have clear boundaries, you create the space needed for self-care, reflection, and personal development. Boundaries allow you to prioritize your mental and emotional health, giving you the space to nurture yourself and grow into the person you're meant to be. Without boundaries, growth becomes stunted because there's no space to breathe or move forward. Ultimately, boundaries are not about building walls, but about building healthy, respectful, and balanced connections with others and with ourselves. They are an act of self-love and self-preservation. Setting boundaries doesn't make you unkind, selfish, or distant. It makes you stronger, more capable of giving, and more aligned with your true self. Without them, we become vulnerable to manipulation, burnout, and resentment. With them, we can walk through life with confidence, clarity, and peace. In a world that constantly tells us to fit in, conform, and seek approval, it's easy to lose sight of who we truly are. The pressure to please others is so pervasive that it often becomes a default behavior, something we do without even realizing it. We shape our words, our actions, and even our beliefs to fit what we think will be accepted or admired by those around us. But this relentless pursuit of approval can leave us disconnected from our true selves, leading to feelings of emptiness, dissatisfaction, and confusion. Authenticity, on the other hand, is the practice of staying true to who we are, unapologetically embracing our own beliefs, values, and identity, even when it doesn't align with what others expect or desire. When we focus on pleasing others, we put their needs, opinions, and expectations above our own, often at the expense of our own mental and emotional well-being. Pleasing becomes a way of gaining validation, seeking reassurance, and avoiding conflict. We go out of our way to make others happy, often bending ourselves to fit into a mold that doesn't reflect our true nature. But here's the catch. When we're more focused on pleasing others, we lose touch with our authentic self. We start to live for others' approval rather than living for the purpose and values that define who we are. This leads to a disconnection from our inner truth and ultimately from the life we were meant to lead. Authenticity, however, is a radical act of self-respect. It's about aligning our actions, words, and decisions with our deepest values, even when it's uncomfortable. Authenticity doesn't seek external validation, it seeks internal alignment. It's about being real. Whether that means standing up for what you believe in, saying no when you need to, or embracing vulnerability and imperfection, it's knowing who you are and refusing to compromise that identity for the sake of fitting in. Authenticity doesn't require you to please anyone except yourself, and it doesn't need external praise or approval to feel valid. It comes from within. One of the major challenges of authenticity over pleasing is the fear of rejection. We often worry that if we stop trying to please others, they will stop liking us, or worse, they will abandon us altogether. But the truth is, the more we try to please, the less genuine our relationships become. People can sense when we are being inauthentic, even if they can't articulate why. Pleasing others can create a false connection, one that is based on superficial expectations rather than true understanding and respect. Authenticity, though, fosters deep, meaningful connections built on trust, vulnerability, and mutual respect. When we are authentic, we attract the people who truly align with who we are, rather than those who simply like the version of ourselves we've constructed to meet their approval. Moreover, pleasing others often leads to burnout and frustration. Constantly putting others' needs first while ignoring our own drains us emotionally and physically. We find ourselves saying yes to things we don't want to do, agreeing to things that don't serve our values, and giving away more of ourselves than we can afford. Over time, this causes resentment and a loss of energy, and can even lead to depression or anxiety. Authenticity, on the other hand, invites us to set boundaries, prioritize our own needs, and make choices that are in alignment with who we truly are. It gives us the power to say no when necessary, to advocate for ourselves, and to create space for what matters most in our lives. Another aspect of authenticity is its ability to foster personal growth. When we are authentic, we embrace our strengths and our weaknesses, our successes and our failures. We stop pretending to be someone we're not and accept ourselves fully. This self-acceptance is the foundation for growth because it allows us to take risks, make mistakes, and learn from them without fear of judgment. We no longer see ourselves through the lens of others' expectations, but through the lens of our own potential. Pleasing others keeps us stuck in a cycle of self-doubt and external validation. But when we are authentic, we empower ourselves to pursue what truly matters to us without seeking permission or approval from anyone else. The choice to live authentically is not always easy. It requires courage, vulnerability, and the willingness to face discomfort. It means stepping away from the comfort of pleasing others and embracing the sometimes challenging path of staying true to who we are, regardless of external pressures. But the rewards of living authentically, peace of mind, stronger relationships, personal growth, and a deeper sense of fulfillment are immeasurable. It's a life that reflects who we are at our core, not who we think we need to be to gain approval. In the end, authenticity over pleasing is not just a choice, it's a practice that leads to a life of meaning, purpose, and true connection. Tough love is a concept that many people struggle to understand, particularly because it seems to contradict the traditional view of love as something gentle, kind, and nurturing. We often associate love with comfort, softness, and affirmation. But tough love is something different. It's not about being harsh for the sake of being cruel. It's about caring enough to confront difficult truths, challenge behavior, and push someone toward growth, even when it's uncomfortable it's love that is willing to risk momentary discomfort for the sake of long-term benefit and transformation. At its heart, tough love is about showing people that you care by refusing to let them stay stuck in unhealthy patterns. It's the willingness to say hard things to those we love, even when we know they may not want to hear them. It's the tough decision to not enable bad behavior, to not make excuses for someone's actions, and to not shield them from the consequences of their choices. Often we mistakenly think that love means protecting people from pain, but the truth is that growth often comes through hardship. Tough love acknowledges that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to let someone face the consequences of their actions. This doesn't mean being cold-hearted or cruel. On the contrary, tough love is grounded in compassion and empathy. It's not about shaming or belittling someone, but about holding them accountable in a way that encourages them to rise above their weaknesses. It's the difference between allowing someone to continue in their destructive behavior out of misguided kindness and stepping in to help them break free from it, even if it causes temporary discomfort. Tough love seeks the best outcome for the person, even if it's hard to see in the moment. One of the key challenges of tough love is understanding that it often involves a degree of detachment. When we love someone, we naturally want to shield them from pain, but tough love requires us to let go of that desire. It's about knowing that sometimes love means stepping back and allowing the person to face their own reality without rescuing them or solving their problems for them. This detachment isn't about abandoning the person. It's about recognizing that true love doesn't spoil, coddle, or protect from every hardship. It equips, strengthens, and challenges. Tough love can be difficult for both the giver and the receiver. The person receiving it may feel hurt, rejected, or angry, at least in the short term. It's hard to see the value in tough love when you're in the midst of a difficult situation and the last thing you want is a harsh dose of reality. However, the person giving it may also face challenges, fear of being misunderstood, fear of rejection, or fear of damaging the relationship. It takes strength and resolve to offer tough love, knowing that the other person may not appreciate it at first, or might even push away. But in time, the recipient often realizes that what seemed harsh was actually a form of deep care and concern. One of the most powerful examples of tough love can be found in parenting. As parents, we often want to shield our children from hurt, disappointment, or failure. However, true parenting requires knowing when to step in and when to step back. Tough love involves setting clear boundaries and expectations, holding children accountable for their actions, and not allowing them to avoid the consequences of poor decisions. It's about teaching them responsibility, self-discipline, and resilience. While it's painful to see your child struggle or fail, it's through those struggles that they learn the most important lessons of life. Without tough love, they may never develop the skills needed to face the challenges of the world on their own. In relationships, tough love can be equally transformative. It might mean having a difficult conversation with a friend or partner about their behavior, expressing concerns in a way that challenges them to grow. It's not about criticizing or controlling, but about supporting them in becoming the best version of themselves. Tough love might involve stepping back in a toxic relationship to create space for personal growth or setting clear boundaries to prevent further harm. It's the strength to not allow someone you love to continue down a path that will only hurt them in the long run. One key aspect of self-kindness is practicing forgiveness. How often do we hold on to guilt or shame for things we've done in the past, letting them weigh us down and dictate our present? Self-kindness encourages us to let go of those burdens, to forgive ourselves for our missteps, and to release the perfectionist mindset that says we must always be flawless. It's about understanding that no one is perfect and that every mistake is an opportunity to learn and grow rather than a mark of failure. Another essential component of self-kindness is setting healthy boundaries. It's the ability to recognize when we are being stretched too thin, when we're running on empty, or when we're allowing others to take more from us than we can give. Self-kindness means saying no when we need to, taking time for self-care, and ensuring that we prioritize our own needs. It's about honoring our physical, mental, and emotional well-being and understanding that it's not selfish to care for ourselves. It's necessary. Without boundaries, we can easily become overwhelmed, burnt out, and disconnected from our true selves. Self-kindness allows us to create the space we need to replenish and restore so we can show up as our best selves in all areas of life. In addition to forgiveness and boundaries, self-kindness involves positive self-talk. We often have a harsh inner critic that constantly tells us we're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough. Self-kindness invites us to challenge those negative thoughts and replace them with affirmations of our worth. It's about speaking to ourselves with love, encouragement, and acceptance. Instead of focusing on what we've done wrong or what we lack, we focus on what we've done well, on our strengths, and on the progress we've made. This shift in mindset allows us to build a healthier, more positive relationship with ourselves, which in turn positively impacts our overall well-being. Self-kindness also involves cultivating patience. We live in a world that constantly pushes us to be faster, to do more, and to achieve results immediately. But true growth takes time. It takes patience and understanding, not just from others, but from ourselves as well. When we are kind to ourselves, we allow ourselves the grace to move through life at our own pace. We acknowledge that growth and healing are processes, not destinations, and that we don't need to have everything figured out in one moment. Self-kindness allows us to trust the journey and be patient with ourselves along the way. One of the most powerful ways to practice self-kindness is through self-compassion. When we fall short of our expectations, make a mistake, or face a difficult challenge, we often treat ourselves with harsh criticism or self-judgmentum. But self-compassion is about recognizing that suffering, failure, and imperfection are part of the human experience. And instead of punishing ourselves, we offer ourselves the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend in need. We comfort ourselves, acknowledge our struggles, and remind ourselves that we are worthy of love and care, regardless of our mistakes or shortcomings. Ultimately, self-kindness is not about being perfect. It's about being human. It's about showing up for ourselves in the most compassionate, nurturing way possible, especially when we need it the most. It's the foundation for a healthier, more balanced life, and it's the practice that allows us to fully accept ourselves, flaws and all. When we treat ourselves with kindness, we are better able to face the challenges of life, bounce back from setbacks, and move forward with a sense of purpose and self-worth. Self-kindness is the key to not just surviving, but thriving in a world that often demands perfection. The power of saying no is one of the most empowering skills we can develop in life. In a world that constantly asks for more of our time, energy, and attention, learning to say no is essential for maintaining balance, protecting our well-being, and preserving our sense of self. Often, saying no is perceived as a negative or selfish action, but in reality, it is one of the most self-loving and empowering choices we can make. It is not an act of refusal. Rather, it is an act of prioritization, self-respect, and boundary setting. The fear of saying no often stems from a deep-seated concern about disappointing others. being judged, or fearing conflict. We worry that by saying no, we may let someone down or damage a relationship. However, what we fail to realize is that consistently saying yes when we really want to say no can be far more damaging in the long run. It can lead to burnout, resentment, and a loss of self-worth. When we say yes to things that don't align with our values or desires, we end up giving away our time and energy to things that drain us instead of things that nourish us. Saying no, on the other hand, allows us to protect our mental, emotional, and physical resources so that we can invest them in things that truly matter. Saying no is also a powerful tool for self-awareness and clarity. When we're constantly saying yes to external requests, we lose sight of our own needs, desires, and priorities. We become reactive, letting others dictate how we spend our time and what we focus on. But when we learn to say no, we take back control of our time and our decisions. We become more intentional about how we allocate our energy and which commitments we choose to take on. Saying no gives us the space to reflect on what is truly important to us and what aligns with our values and long-term goals. Moreover, saying no is an essential aspect of setting healthy boundaries. Boundaries are the invisible lines we draw to protect ourselves from being overextended, overwhelmed, or manipulated. Without boundaries, we risk losing our sense of self and becoming consumed by the needs and expectations of others. By learning to say no, we assert our boundaries and communicate to others that we are not available for everything. This sends a powerful message that we value ourselves and our time, and we are not willing to sacrifice our well-being for the sake of pleasing others or avoiding conflict. Learning to say no also requires practicing self-compassion. It's easy to fall into the trap of guilt when we say no, especially if we are conditioned to believe that being helpful or agreeable is a virtue. However, self-compassion teaches us that it is okay to prioritize our needs even when it means disappointing others. Saying no is not an act of rejection, it is an act of self-preservation. We are not responsible for meeting every need or fulfilling every request that comes our way. By saying no, we are honoring our own limits and acknowledging that we deserve to take care of ourselves first. In many cases, saying no can actually improve our relationships. When we say yes to everything, we may end up resenting others or feeling overwhelmed, and this can negatively impact our interactions with them. However, when we learn to say no in a healthy way, we create clearer expectations and more authentic connections. We communicate openly about our needs and limitations, which fosters mutual respect and understanding. Instead of feeling burdened by constant requests, we can engage with others in ways that are meaningful and aligned with our capacity. Saying no, then, is a way to build stronger and more sustainable relationships. Another powerful benefit of saying no is that it allows us to say yes to the things that truly matter. Every time we say yes to something that doesn't align with our goals or values, we are saying no to the things that do. When we become comfortable with saying no, we create the space to say yes to opportunities, activities, and commitments that bring us joy, fulfillment, and growth. Saying no frees us from the pressure of trying to please everyone and allows us to focus on what is most important to us.